Bernie Sanders, who is a senator running for the 2020 Democratic Party presidential nomination, has published his immigration plan, and it's a good one. It's comprehensive, and it deals with the major issues that are surrounding immigration. And one of the most important things about this plan, which we're going to look at today in some detail, is that there's the policy stuff that is immediately related to immigration, DACA, child separations, but it's a plan that is comprehensive in that it deals with the issue as it exists in the real world, which is connected to so many other issues. And this is one of the things that there's like a myopia that often takes place in politics around controversial issues where each side, and I'm not playing a both sides game, but both sides do this to some degree. Each side sort of buckles down in arguing in a narrow way about particular elements of a policy issue without considering in a serious way the circumstances and the context in which it exists. And when you look at something like immigration, immigration relates to education, law enforcement, healthcare, trade, economics, all of these other things that if you really want to deal with it in a serious adult way, you have to consider, and Bernie Sanders' plan does that. So this will be good. It's good to sometimes step back from the polls and the tweets. This is Bernie's immigration plan and some of the components that are included. The right likes to talk about deportations and the wall. Crossing the border is criminal. Detain people, charge them, get them out. Doesn't deal with the circumstances and the conditions that got us to where we are today. And that's one of the best things about this plan. So Bernie Sanders would end child separations at the border. Okay, that's a specific action that can be taken via a directive. That's a good start. Bernie would reunite separated children with families. Makes sense to do. Doesn't mean people are not going to be held accountable if they've committed crimes. It's not opening the door to lawlessness like the right likes to suggest. It just makes sense to do it. Auditing and closing detention centers. You don't necessarily need to close all of them, and Bernie Sanders is not claiming that he would. He would audit the entire system. He would look at the conditions that are taking place within individual detention centers, and he would figure out which ones need to be reformed and which ones need to be closed. Very good. Bernie would put a moratorium on all deportations. Now, this is a controversial element here because even among many on the left in the Democratic Party, within the House and Senate, there are not that many people who say stop all deportations. But what Bernie Sanders is saying here is, at least as we sort out some of these other elements, let's put a moratorium on deportations because they're once you've rung that bell, once the genie is out of the bottle, once you've deported someone, the ability to undo that if we decide that the policy is changing is extremely limited. Stopping all construction of the border wall, obvious. Now, you might say, I didn't think that the border wall was even under construction. So we've got elements of the wall that are being replaced with Donald Trump's version of the wall that were scheduled for replacement. As we know, you can either climb over them, as some have done. You can get a $100 saw at any hardware store and saw through it. So it's not a virtually impenetrable fence as Donald Trump has claimed it to be. But Bernie is saying here, just cut and dry, whatever it is that's going on, if and when he becomes president in terms of construction of a border wall, we're going to stop that. And overturning the Muslim ban as well. Of course, Trump is saying it's not really a Muslim ban. We've had that debate. That is a policy that doesn't make any sense. It's a policy that doesn't make sense on the merits because it's targeting countries that have not actually been the sources of people who come to the United States and do violent things, commit terrorist acts. So on the merits, it doesn't make sense. And also in terms of what it signals, in terms of the sort of ambiance or atmosphere that such a policy creates, it's not doing anything for us, and it's actually doing a lot against us. So Bernie would stop that. Then we get into some of the key elements of the immigration debate, one of which is DACA, Deferred Action for Child Arrivals. Child arrivals meaning individuals who, even if they are older than 18 today, 18 or older today, they came to the United States as minors brought by their parents. And it doesn't make sense to punish people for circumstances that are not of their doing. Bernie would extend DACA to the 1.8 million who are currently eligible for it, and also allow those who have been in the United States undocumented for more than 5 years to remain without threat of deportation. And as we know, if you are here, even if you're not committing criminal acts, as almost all undocumented immigrants are not doing, and all of those circumstances are true, if you know you face deportation, you are not going to be contributing to society in the way that you otherwise would be able to and would choose to, because that fear of deportation would keep you hidden. It would keep you in circumstances where you're not a productive member of society. That's a really good thing. But then what's the bigger picture of that? The path to citizenship. Bernie would, and I like that he's being upfront about this piece, Bernie would push Congress for a path to citizenship for the 11 million who are already here in the United States, undocumented, living and working today. And Bernie's being upfront. He's not saying, I will do this, because he can't do this. It is something he needs to push Congress to do. And he's being clear about that in the plan. Importantly, things like marijuana possession and other nonviolent violations of the law will not block the path to citizenship. That makes absolute and total sense. And I like that that is included here. Bernie would also repeal the 8 U.S. Code Section 1325, which puts border crossings on par with other types of immigration violations, like overstaying a visa. It would change the circumstances where a border crossing has some higher criminal consideration that simply overstaying a visa does not. It would put it all on par. Now, as far as immigration agencies, Bernie wants to break up ICE and Customs and Border Patrol, but not eliminate the function, simply redistribute them. And this is an important thing, because on the one hand, you have ICE and CBP, which are extraordinarily mismanaged, inefficient, and involved in a lot of things that we want to curtail. But at the same time, if you simply say abolish ICE and CBP and eliminate their functions altogether, you will get a large contingent of the American public saying that is irresponsible. So what Bernie would do is he would bring back the enforcement of deportations and of border investigative authority to the Department of Justice. Doesn't mean we eliminate it. We simply move it from ICE and CBP back to DOJ. Customs authority would go from CBP back to the Treasury Department, the way it used to be. And the naturalization and citizenship authority would be given back to the State Department. Makes absolute and total sense. Now is when we start getting into the really interesting stuff. You know that this is a thoughtful and well-crafted plan because Bernie is including elements like strengthening immigrant labor rights in immigration reform, which have a place there. That's exactly what we should be doing. So, for example, there will be a whistleblower visa established to protect immigrant workers who are reporting exploitative actions by employers. One of the ways in which big corporations remain the major beneficiaries of undocumented immigration is that they have almost carte blanche to have horrible working conditions because they know that their undocumented workers that they are employing, which by the way is against the law, but good luck holding them accountable. We're not doing it. They know that they are not in a position to go and report those conditions for fear of deportation. A whistleblower visa would protect them. Restructuring work visas to make them portable, because when you have a work visa that is tied to one employer only, that employee is trapped at that employer. And again, it diminishes their labor rights and labor power. Very great, absolutely fantastic thing to do. Ending workplace raids and shifting the focus of the enforcement from the workers to the employers. I've been talking about this for years. You've got to deal with the employers here. Bernie would do that. Protecting farm workers, there's lots of ways that Bernie does this. One is requiring at least a $15 minimum wage and overtime pay for agricultural workers. There are all these exemptions for agricultural workers from a lot of the labor laws that protect other workers. You've got to get rid of those loopholes. Medicare for all. Now you might say, wait a second, what does Medicare for all have to do with immigration? Everything. Everything. When you look at the disparities in healthcare along racial lines and among immigrant versus domestically born, if you are going to comprehensively do immigration reform, you need to deal with the system that we have, which doesn't work, and Medicare for all is Bernie's way of dealing with it. Bernie also says that he will use executive orders whenever possible. Now, I think that this is both smart and honest. Bernie is saying, I can't use executive orders for all of these things. Bernie is not pretending that he can just snap his finger and create a path to citizenship for undocumented immigrants, even if that's what he would like to do. On that issue, he will push Congress to do it. Where he can use executive orders, he will use them, and he will also work to undo the disastrous work that Donald Trump has done on this issue via executive orders. There's a lot more and subpoints to many of these, but these are the primary things. So, question one, can Bernie just do this stuff if he becomes president? The answer is no, of course not, and he's being upfront about the elements that he can't do by himself. But that's okay. A campaign policy platform is merely the starting point. It is what the candidate would like, but let's at least start from the right place, right? We don't start healthcare well, we did under a former president, but we shouldn't start healthcare negotiations under we would like a public option if it's okay, but if not, we'll just do Obamacare. No, we start the negotiations from the morally and ethically correct place that is in line with our values and what we would like to see. And you negotiate from there. So here's how I would sum up what our immigration policy should be as a principle or as a value for starting the negotiation. And the right claims to love this stuff. The right doesn't really want to do the work of the nitty gritty. The right loves to say, here are our values. Here are our principles, and these will guide us and give us all of the answers. They don't, by the way, but let's do it. Here's the principle from which our policies on immigration should follow. Let's treat people like human beings. Let's treat human beings like people. Let's not punish people for circumstances beyond their control. And let's live up to the standards that make the United States what it is, or at least what it is supposed to be, period. Okay? All of the correct policies follow from that if you apply it responsibly and if you apply it in a thoughtful way to all elements of the immigration situation. And as Bernie Sanders' plan points out, that includes healthcare, that includes labor rights, that includes actually buckling down on employers who are breaking the law, yet go virtually unpunished. So a really good plan from Bernie Sanders on this issue. If there are things missing from it that you would like to see, let me know. I'll give you one example of something I would have liked to see more of. One of the most important factors in influencing the number of people that want to come to the United States, legally or illegally, are the circumstances in their home country that they are coming from. And so one of the additional things that I would love to see more of in a serious and comprehensive immigration plan is ideas or policies for how we can modify our relationship or improve circumstances in some of the source countries such that our relationships with those countries will improve. Economically, we will be better off by virtue of helping their economies, and we will just reduce the demand for the number of people that are trying to come over to the United States who are willing to do so illegally. That is what I would like to see more of in the plan, but I want to hear from you as well. I'm on Twitter at @dpacman. The show is on Twitter at David Pakman Show, and we have a packed program for you today.